Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's your host, Belmont, and welcome back to another episode of Power Vacuum. Today I'm coming in with some PlayStation news, mostly about the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, which is no longer a rumor. But I wanted to start by talking about this graph I have pulled up right here because this is from Game Informer, but PlayStation, or I should say Sony, announced that the PlayStation 5 is their most profitable console yet. And the reason they're saying that is because it's only been out for 4 years. And as you can see, let me zoom in on this if I can. Well, can I just get this nice and big? Yeah, here we go. It's at $106 billion in sales. They're looking at this number right here. This is like peripherals and subscription stuff. But this number right here is the one they really care about. It's the total console sales in dollars. And yeah, $106 billion is a lot. And but when you look at the PS4 and you go 107 billion, you go, well, wait a minute. The PS5 is sold less than the PS4, but in 3 less years. So they're thinking with the current rate of growth that it's going to definitely beat this. Another $1 billion is a lot of money, but it's really not that far to go in comparison. But they stopped counting the PS4 numbers in 2019. And I went ahead and checked. These numbers here are not adjusted for inflation. This is just the raw data. So if you actually adjust the PS4 sales from 107 billion from 2019, now believe it or not, the inflation rate on a dollar in 2019 is roughly a dollar 23 in 2024 if you adjust the inflation rate versus the value. So given that metric, $107 billion is actually more like $130 billion, which kind of changes this number a lot when you think about it, because Sony now has to go from, getting a little over $1 billion to beat their previous record to now getting over $24 billion, which is a much, much larger number. That is not a small amount. And which is questionable to me because the PS5 enthusiasm is at an all-time low. Trust in the PlayStation and Sony are at an all-time low. There was the whole deleting people's libraries, the whole Helldivers nonsense with the PlayStation Network, the dozens of countries that can't even log into PlayStation Network because they don't have access to it. So there's more games coming out for PC in the future that are going to acquire PSN network accounts, and they're announcing in advance, which is much smarter than trying to screw people over like they did with Helldivers. Put the warning out in advance. So hey, if you're doing this, you got to sign up. But that limits the reach of their stuff and thus is going to limit their income. So I just found that interesting. And then with the PS5 Pro, I saw this article a few days ago, and most of what we know about it's pure rumor right now. There's nothing too much official. We know that it is happening. We know that it's boasting better system specs, as it damn well should, considering it's the Pro version. But let me go ahead and read this little stuff from WCCF Tech. And Moore's Law is Dead from the Broken Silicon podcast. But during the latest episode of the here we go. We're going to start at the top. The PlayStation 5 Pro has been reportedly ready for release since last year. So 2023, November or December was the original plan. But the console's launch may have been delayed to coincide with big game releases. During the latest episode of the Broken Silicon podcast, Moore's Law is Dead briefly commented on the upcoming mid-generation hardware refresh from Sony, saying that at some point the console was unlikely to be released. Work continued, however, and the system's final silicon was completed and ready for release last year. As for why the PlayStation 5 Pro, Moore's Law is dead, believes Sony wants. That's a weird sentence. Whatever. Why it was delayed. Sony wants to launch to coincide releases with games such as Grand Theft Auto 6, which makes a lot of sense considering it is the latest entry in the series by Rockstar Games that is only releasing on current generation consoles and that is likely going to be a huge system seller, and Sony is not launching any big game this year. Which, all right, let me pause right there. Yes, is GTA 6 going to be a big seller? Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if it's going to be as big as Red Dead Redemption 2 because the hype around Red Dead Redemption 2 was pretty big, and most of the hype around GTA 6 has been more along the lines of we arrested these hackers for their leaks and less about the specifications of the game, where Red Dead Redemption 2 is all about like the specifications, the detail, the effort they put into the world. They were talking about the game itself, not about its impact on society, the way GTA 6 is talking about itself. But if you take a little trip down memory lane, a lot of you might remember, some of you might not. Red Dead Redemption 2 had the biggest release in media history. It was $725 million in sales in a 3-day period just on console. That was just PlayStation and Xbox because it wasn't out on PC yet. By the time it came out on PC, I think it's past $1.3 billion in sales, which for a game that's not even that old is astronomical. It is fantastic. It is amazing, and it's a precursor for what GTA 6 might have the potential to be. I don't know if it's going to be that big because I think a lot of people um, aren't real happy with AAA game studios right now. Rockstar still seems to be in some good graces. It really depends on, what kind of rumors come out in the next few months before the game releases. But yeah, it makes sense for them to be like, oh, we're going to drop this big console with this big game. Now, is the reason they're doing that because they're worried that the PS5 might not be able to handle GTA 6? Are they worried that they have to have a vamped up console in order for it to, you know, be able to handle the processing power required to play this game? I don't know. I know notoriously PlayStation has graphical issues and loading issues with games that are on multiple platforms, where Xbox has a lot less of those because Xbox software is more closely related to PC software than Sony is and PlayStation consoles are. And that definitely affects the way things play, considering everything's made on PC, even if it is made for console. They're not sitting there scripting through the PlayStation Network or the Xbox itself. They do it on a computer. So having that edge of the software being more related to PC definitely helps Xbox run certain games a lot smoother. And here's a little more about the PS5 Pro. Uh, From what we know about the specs, we should expect more stable 40 frames per second modes thanks to the modest CPU upgrade. Maybe and dynamic resolution scaling thanks to the 45% faster GPU. See, now that's a big claim. 45% faster, that's not bad. 40 frames per second versus 30 frames per second. And is PS5 even 30 frames per second? I'm going to assume that it is, but that's not that big of a leap. People are very upset that consoles aren't pushing 60 frames per second consistently. I don't know if anybody remembers when Starfield came out, how pissed off everyone was that it was a frame rate locked at 30 frames per second. Outrage across the spectrum. People were already planning to mod it on PC to 60 frames per second Some people claim that they managed to do it on Xbox. Don't know if there's any validity to that rumor. That game was kind of boring. I didn't keep playing it. It has none of the replayability that Skyrim had, and it's got only half of the replayability that Fallout 4 had. It just seems like since Skyrim, Bethesda's been kind of ticking slowly down on their replayability of their games. You know, they peaked with Skyrim. Fallout 4 wasn't as good as Fallout 3. Starfield wasn't as good as Fallout 4. Uh, Fallout 76 was just boring trash from the beginning. I don't even want to talk about that game. Moving on. But if the GPU is 45% faster, that's substantial. The system will also support the PlayStation Super Spectral Resolution Upscaler. Oh, the PSSR. Okay. Which will eventually support the 8K resolutions and considerably better ray tracing performance over the base model. I have heard, I don't think this article mentions it. No, they don't. I've heard that they're saying that the ray tracing is going to be 2 to 3 times better, which is way, way better than, the PS5. But my question is this. Is the PS5 Pro just too little too late? Should they have released it a year ago? You've got Nintendo Switch 2 not slated for this year, but the rumors are that it's probably going to come out 2025, maybe spring, maybe summer of 2025. The Xbox rumor mill is full tilt right now with the next console. People estimating that they're going to announce it next year and release it by 2026. But with Xbox, you never know. They're notorious for pushing up their release dates on their consoles. I mean, the PS3 and the Xbox 360 had like a miniature war going on over who was going to release their console first. If anybody remembers that, they kept pushing their dates back by a month, by a month, by a month, by a month. And then Xbox, in a brilliant blow, was like, oh yeah, we're going to come out 6 months earlier than we planned. So PlayStation's like, we're also going to come out 6 months earlier than we planned. And then Xbox went, ooh, we made a mistake. It's actually going to be 4 months after the 6 months earlier. So only 2 months early, but still early. And PlayStation had already committed, and the PS3 had some problems when it came out. But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about the next gen. And it is I don't know. I just think the PlayStation 5 Pro might be too little too late. They might have just, hesitated too long, and hesitation is defeat. So if anybody out there knows anything more about this, if anybody knows any rumors, go ahead and hit me up. If anybody working for Sony knows what's going on with the PS5 Pro, definitely hit me up if you manage to find this video, because I would love to talk to you and find out what's going on. But for right now, that's all we know. It's not a lot. Should have come out a year ago. They're planning on releasing it later this year around the time that Grand Theft Auto 6 drops. And I just don't know if it's going to have the hype or the momentum to carry the PS5 into the next generation. I don't think there's any rumors about what Sony's planning to do with the PS6. And I think with Nintendo and Xbox having rumors for their next console, that the PS5 Pro might just sputter and stall. Well, let me know what you think. That's all I have for today. Belmont out.